Hello, teacher. Good morning, good afternoon, whatever the moment you are. So here we are, Wendy and Sebastian Rodriguez, and today we're going to be talking about the theme that you proposed about the literature in English. We're going to make a comparative analysis between the literature, the United Kingdom literature, and the United States literature.
So, about the contemporary American literature, we choose The Bruised Eyes by Toni Morrison. And this novel addressed racism and identity through the story of an African American girl who dreams of having blue eyes to feel accepted. The other one is White Noise by Don Lilo. It's a criticism of the consumer society and the fear of that in modern life, presented ironically through the lens of an ordinary American family. About British literature, such as A Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, Whitehead, Zadie Smith. This focus on collective identity, cultural heritage, and intersectionality in multicultural text. Uh, so, general topic of each country about contemporary literature. We can find in American that trauma and consonants rise. In British literature, migration, ancestry, and intersectionality. Well, in the social context, American and British literature explore different themes, but both questions dominant ideologies. In the USA, novels like White Noise and The Bluest Eyes focus on alienation, right? Media influence and racism. In UK, books like White Teeth and Girl, Woman, Other explore post-colonialism and multiculturalism. So, while American texts criticize capitalism and internalize racism, British works highlight diverse identities and cultural legacies, and both push us to think about society. So, about narratives, American narratives are like introspective, highlighting isolation and inner turmoil. But British narrative like lean into connection, community, and multi-voice storytelling.
You're talking about the tone and the atmosphere. What I have to say is that Morrison and DeLillo tend to embrace irony and sorrow. For instance, DeLillo used sharp satire, while Morrison often deeply sorrowful tone, right? Reflecting heavy themes of trauma, memory, and identity. In contrast, authors like Sadie Smith and Bernadette Evaristo from the UK bring like a wide and poetic atmosphere. Even when tackling about serious topics, they use humor, vivid language, and vibrancy. Evaristo thought out verse and Smith thought out her iconic and often humorous character dialogue. American and British writers use different styles to show how they are and they where to come from. In the US, writers like Toni Morrison often use a symbolic and poetic language. For instance, just to bring as an example, in her sentence, quiet as it kept, there were no miracles in the fall of 1941. Sounds deep and mysterious. It makes the reader think on what is going on. In the UK, writers like Bernardine Evaristo use a more natural and spoken style. Her characters often speak directly, like for instance, I'm this sentence that is from her book. There is, I'm trying to tell you that I'm full of contradictions, and that's the point. So what we can concern about this is that the US literature can feel more serious and symbolic, while with the UK literature this seems to feel like more open and meets like to having a conversation. Both styles are powerful, but they just show their identity in different ways. Culture and structure. Well, both literatures challenge conventional structure to reflect their themes, whether It's Delilo's episodic satire or Evaristo's assembled narrative, structured psychological mirrors, and cultural reality. Well, teacher, here for developing the comparative chart, we wanted to spot some main aspects about this literature, and then at the end we arrive to the similarities that they have each other. For instance, the core concern about the literature that we just point at in the first moment is that the identity is, for American literature, identity is shaped by trauma, consumerism, and racial self-perception. But in British literature, the identity is shaped by migration, ancestry, and intersectionality. What is the main difference? In the USA, are there are attempts to develop the individual trauma, but in the UK, the community and the diversity is primarily. What things we understand that they have been similar is that both explore identity construction within societal constraints. In that way, we develop the comparative chart, talking about social commentary, the language focus, and the other perspective that they can have. This is the first part. Then, well, now I'm gonna show you the second one. Well, the other aspects that we wanted to study here for developing our comparative chart is the stylistic approach, the cultural representation, the structure, the themes, and the language you use. Why do we want to mention this? Because studying the different literatures and the different books that we choose, and we noticed that, for instance, in Morrison's, the fragmentation is not the same as is in the Littles, right? In the cultural representation from the USA, is the Black American girlhood, white suburban detachment, but in the British literature, we're talking about British Jamaican, African, and queer identities across the generations. The structure that we notice is, for instance, in the Blues Eye, is that it's fragment, yeah, it's episodic, but in the British literature, it's non-linear, it's ensemble based. Girl, woman, other, white thieves, among other books. The themes that both literatures trying to achieve is racial trauma, male anxiety, beauty standards, and death. In the UK literature, the diaspora, the belonging, the feminism, the sexual identity, and the generational conflict. The language used for both authors is dense, symbolic, with a poetic and an ironic edge. But for the British ones, this language tends to change because of more oral rhythm, conversational, and with diverse dialects and registers. Now, teacher, at the end of the workshop, here we are sharing with you our poster made by Wendy and I. And so with the poster, what we wanted to do is to compare the key aspects, right, of the contemporary American and British literature by analyzing the major works that we choose. In this case, it's the Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison, and The White Snows by Don DeLillo, The White Thieves by C.E. Smith, and The Girl, Woman, Other by Bernadette Evaristo. This analysis focus of each work addresses the identity, race, culture, and the individual experience in a complex society. Here we have a picture of Toni Morrison and Sadie Smith. Toni Morrison was an African American novelist who won the Nobel Prize. Her works explore Black identity, history, and trauma in American society. In this case, in the blues, I. Morrison used a poetic language and shifting perspective to reveal the devastating effects of racism and beauty standards on a young black girl. On the other hand, we have Sadie Smith. This girl is a British Jamaican author known for exploring the multiculturalism and identity in post-colonial Britain. Her debut on the novel White Teeth portrays immigrant experience and generational classes in London, using satire, humor, and a non-linear narrative. In the comparative chart, we choose different categories as narrative focus, social commentary, tone, style, and cultural representation for comparing in this case, the books of Toni Morrison and Sadie Smith. And we arrived to the following discussion. That is that American literature often focuses on individual psychology or struggles in oppressive settings, while British literature explores collective identity, migration, and belonging. Both challenge dominant narrative and amplify diverse voices. And the conclusion that we arrive with my partner and I is that the contemporary American and British literature both explore identity, race, and social throughout diverse voices. While American authors tend to focus on personal trauma and symbolism, British writers highlight community, migration, and multiple perspectives. Together, they offer a powerful insights for our today's work, and that will be all. Teacher. Now let's gonna continue with the conclusions that are gonna be explored by my friend, by my classmate.
In conclusion, despite difference in tone, style, and focus in both traditions, reveal how to identify is shaped through trauma, community, and social pressure. Finally, literature doesn't just tell stories, it tells truths about who we are.